Hey everybody, welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game, and community news. We're streaming live at Twitch/3D6 Charge every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We're also anywhere that you can find podcasts, such as Spotify or iTunes. This is episode number 53, Mech FAQ discussion. I'm your host, Chris Vo, and joining me today is Kevin Lieb.
Howdy, howdy.
And Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey everyone.
So, as the title of the episode suggests, we want to, AdMech got an FAQ and we want to talk about it. But before we dive into that, let's see. We've got a team event coming up. We talked about it last episode, but I figured we'd just throw that out there again. Ben, Kevin, you want to give us the details on that, please?
Oh, sure. I'll go ahead, Kevin.
You go ahead. You're at the TO.
Okay. Yeah, that's sorry. Yeah, so I'll be running it. Kevin will be appearing in it. So it's a doubles event, which is, it's so funny because Chris, you called it a team event. I do this too all the time with 40k where I go, oh, it's a team event. Whereas like team event's like a specific format and doubles is a different format, which is, anyway, the doubles tournament. It's going to be in Wakefield at the South County Game Nights Clubhouse. We do have a cap on teams, and we have had several teams now signed up. So if you're looking to play in a doubles event, if you're looking to play in this double event, which is this weekend on the 7th, definitely either Facebook message me, email me, send me a text if you know my number. If you don't know any of these things and you are just hanging out in chat, feel free to drop a message in chat and I'll contact you and get you signed up. It's looking to be it's a pretty casual event. There's no entry here. We're just looking to play some 40k. It's gonna be a good time and tons of space. Every table's in its own room, so no bumping elbows, which is oftentimes an issue with doubles events.
Yeah, especially in smaller venues where like the tables, you can't even get around the tables all the way.
But every table is in the middle of its own room, so yeah, that's not a problem.
Awesome.
Despite being a free tournament, though, that does not mean that there's not prizes. If you come in first, you get a month free entry to the club. So, no cost, but you could get a reward. And
more importantly, we'll change the club image background to an image of your faction.
Yeah, we've been
doing that for the tournament. Yeah, we've been stuck on Necrons for, oh goodness. Basically, so I won like a league with Necrons at the club, and then COVID happened. So Necrons have been reigning supreme for a long time. So if literally anyone could come in and win with not Necrons, just so we can change the image, that'd be great.
So you're banning Necrons?
Or you could come in and win with Necrons, and I'll change it to a different image of Necrons, which is also fun.
All right, cool. Let's see. And then you and Ben, you and Kevin played in an RTT this past weekend, right?
Yes.
We did.
How'd that go?
We both went 2-1. Though our paths were a little bit different. I lost on the undefeated table. Kevin, I believe, lost his first round and then won the next two.
Mm-hmm.
What armies did you guys bring?
I brought
Death Watch.
Yeah, I brought my stupid Talus that everyone knows and loves.
Okay.
You ended up playing against AdMech, right, Ben? So
I sure did. So yeah, well, we each only really had one interesting game. So my two uninteresting games. I played against someone who's playing Harlequins. I had more guns than he had models, so like that wasn't a very interesting game. And then I played a Town Mirror, and Town Mirrors are just like whose shield drones fold first, and I find them to be very unstrategic and not particularly interesting. So that wasn't a particularly interesting game either. So my AdMech game I do want to talk about, but I think we'll talk about that after we discuss the AdMech FAQ. So do you want to jump into that now?
The AdMech FAQ? Yeah, if you guys didn't want to talk about your game, sure.
Yeah, well, I played against that mech, and we
Okay.
played with the FAQ, so it's worth talking about the FAQ.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Kevin, did you want to say anything about your game before we hop straight into AdMech talk?
Sure. So I played, as I just said, I played Deathwatch. So Battalion, I brought a captain on bike with a storm shield and a lightning claw. He had Rights of War and a relic from the Deathwatch that is a relic storm shield that still gives the +1 to save, but also gives a 6-inch aura of 5-up invuln and to both core and characters. A Tech Marine with a relic of +1 to hit against fly units for core and characters, and a warlord trait of pick a unit. If they're in the tactical doctrine, they're considered in the devastator, and if they're in the assault, they're considered in the tactical.
I think it rolls it back one.
It rolls it back one. Um, I like to I like saying it out just because some people get confused by rolls it back.
Gotcha, fair.
Uh, and I have some dreadnoughts, so I was mainly using that on there. I also had a librarian with a psychic power of give a unit +1 to say. Oh, sorry, +1 to hit in melee, +1 to Overwatch and fight first, and then another psychic power of a 5-up feel no pain. Moving on to troops. This is Deathwatch, but they're actually kind of complicated. A Spectrus kill team with 5 infiltrators, 5 incursors. I always split those up so that there was so they were kind of 2 5-man squads, but still getting the Omni scramblers benefit. A big Indominator kill team with 5 heavy intercessors with the bolt rifles, and then a heavy bolter. A Inceptor with bolters, and then 3 eradicators with the regular gun, and then 1 eradicator with the multi-melta. Then I had a old-fashioned Deathwatch kill team with 4 veterans with essentially chainswords and bolt guns. One of them had a storm shield as a replacement. A sergeant with a lightning claw and a Deathwatch bolt gun. A black shield with a thunder hammer and a chainsword. The reason you do that, in case it's been a while, that gets him up to base attack characteristics of 4 with the thunder hammer, so 5 on the charge. A lightning claw terminator, a thunderhand storm shield terminator, 2 bites with chainswords. So that's one big old kill team. Moving on to the elites, I had the super apothecary with the Tomb of Ectoclades, pick an enemy data sheet, give off an aura, rerolling wound rolls against that data sheet. 2 Plasma Redemptor Dreadnoughts, 1 Gatling Redemptor Dreadnought, and then my favorite Dreadnought, nicknamed Chungus because he's pure pewter metal, a old Dreadnought with a multi-melta and a Stormbolter.
I love it.
Just real quick to remind me, because I don't remember. Tome of Ethiclades, is that once per game for 1 turn? Is that always?
You activate it in the command phase, and it lasts until your next command phase. 6-inch aura. Sorry, I felt like I was taking a long time on the list. So
it's all good. No, that one's just like I was figuring that one does.
Round 1, I play against orcs. So he was 2 detachments, a detachment of snake bites, and a detachment of what's their name? Gaw.
This is New Orcs, right?
New Orc. Yep.
Okay.
So he has 2 so he has the super war boss on the big Squig, I forget its name.
Beast boss on Squigosaur.
Beast boss on Squigosaur. 2 Smasher knob. The knobs on Squig.
Knob on Smash a Squig?
Knob on Smash a Squig.
Beast knob on Smash a Squig?
The unit of the new Beast Naga boys. These are all Snakebite. A unit of the what's their name? The Squig Hogs.
The riders.
Squig Hog Riders. 2 units of the Buggy that shoots squigs. That ignore.
Squig rocket truck.
Rocket trucks,
Yeah.
Squig buggies.
Sorry, that
It's all good. All the names in that codex are insane.
They're all the best names too,
you
like
keep
Boondocka
throwing the words at us,
Snazwagon.
we'll orc translate it. It's good.
the problem is the GW did a classic like what was good last edition is not good this edition. So it's like
Yeah, it's all the new
it's
things.
also
It's like
yeah. Like if
well, I
anyway,
mean, most models you've named so far are just like new.
fair. Some number of boys, I forget the exact count, that kind of died to Gatling. A old-fashioned war boss in the actually, it's a new war boss in Mega Armor. He used an old war boss model. I think it might have been Gaz. A bunch of war bikes. The
Jets, right?
jump pack orcs. A unit of commandos, and
Storm
a
boat.
3-man unit of copters, and then another buggy that shoots a bunch of rockets.
That's a scrap jet.
Scrap jet.
It also
Two
has
of
like
those.
20 heavy bolter shots, right? Or I guess old heavy bolter, 501.
Oh no, this thing was firing a bunch of missiles,
3D3 missiles.
something like that. And then
Yeah,
then,
that buggy also has 20 shots with the anti-infantry gun. It just does both.
gotcha.
Yeah, that the firepower on that particular one is like kind of egregious. We can talk about that at the end of the episode, though.
So we end up getting. Man, I'm blanking on the mission.
It was the
Oh,
scouring.
the scouring. Yeah.
The best
and
mission.
Oh boy.
I take get a point for every 10 wounds of model you kill. I take domination. Oh man, I wish I had my tournament sheet on me. And assassinate, because he had a bunch of characters that just were going to run at me, and
Yeah.
I either
You know
killed
the
them and
things?
lost, or I either was going to lose to a bunch of characters smashing my face, or I was going to kill the characters and
Yeah,
assassin.
we've briefly mentioned it before, but the new orc characters are so absurdly killy in melee that like if one of them gets thrown at you and you don't deal with it, you've just lost. They're gonna pick up like 400 points of models.
Yikes.
Yeah. He went first, moved some of the squigs up, fired some of the anti-squig shots into my big Dominator kill team. He ends up killing one and wounding one, but I have an apothecary, so that he didn't do anything with his first turn effectively. My dreadnoughts move out, kill a bunch of boys, just gatling down the boys, macroplasmaing down the boys. I didn't really get an opportunity to shoot anything else because he kept a lot back or behind walls. Turn 2, he declares a Wa and
Is it a
moves up
wah or
his
a speed wah?
regular Wa. Moves up his 2 orcs, his mega boss orc and his 2 orcs on Knob Smasher Squig orcs. The 2 character ones.
Knob on Smash a Squig.
Sorry, yes.
It's all good.
And bunch of the war bikes on the side, a bunch of boys on the side come out of a truck. Oh, there was a truck. I'm remembering it now. They just get a
The
lot.
truck boys in a truck?
No, they had the Goth crate, so I think he didn't do
Okay.
truck boys. The war boss out of the bike, out of the truck. Those go charging, and of course we're playing the scouring, so like all of our models are just like
On top
right
of
up
each
in the
other.
yeah. Yeah, I take a little bit of a crumping there. The one flank is pretty much being held by the old school kill team, and they kind of take the hits like a champ because of the classic storm shield plus 2 up armor save. Even with the -1, I kind of just like tanked a bunch of boy hits with that. The other flank, I also did I forgot to say this on my previous turn. I did some screening with my infiltrating unit. So even though all those Smasher Squig knob and the Squigosaur were able to move forward and charge, they didn't actually like hit anything that I didn't expect to die anyway. He deep strikes in the rocket things and like cripple, like it goes down to 1 wound on a Redemptor Dreadnought. With just the number of rockets, I'm still amazed by the number of shots that things puts out. Deep strikes in some copters, shoots up another Redemptor Dreadnought. That one doesn't get nearly as hurt. He just doesn't roll that well. On my turn, I dedicate a Dreadnought to go back to deal with the copters. 1 forward to shoot up the scrap jets. And then the damage one kind of goes over to the Tech Marine to say, "Help me." The Indominator kill team moves forward, and this is the first volley of Melt-A-Gun shots into that Smashes Squig boss. The Meltas never all fail to wound. I do some chip damage with the bolt guns that are part of the unit, so that's not good. I throw in a my Tech Marine and my Librarian. Oh, sorry, not my Tech Marine. My Captain and my Librarian into there, knowing that I can, with the power of Transhuman, I was going to be able to like keep one of them alive. And the hope is that thing won't be able to like tie up my big firepower units or get to my backline. This ends up not going so well for me. As on my next turn, on his next turn, he shoots up that very damaged Redemptor Dreadnought. It explodes, kills my captain, who's the only thing still alive after charging the Squigosaur. The Squigosaur gets freed and charges my backline.
Oh no.
And the game kind of falls down from there because we're playing the Scouring. So once I lost that little bit of tempo, I just lost
scoring
15
points
You just
again.
lost the entire game.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
was he
Good.
running like the B-side mantle on the Squigosaur?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that Squigosaur, Chris, was this a Goth Squigosaur or a Snakebite Squigosaur?
Snake bites.
Okay, so that Squigosaur is 7 attacks during a while, hitting on 2s, with +1 to wound at strength 7, AP 2 damage, rerolling any attack that does not hit, wound, or get saved against. And then 3 more attacks from the Squig at 7 -2 2, 7 -2 3, but 6s to wounds do 3 mortal wounds. Again, re-rolling everything. Sorry,
And still +1 to wound.
Yeah, and I believe with the FAQ that Torrent was playing with, I can't remember exactly. If that one fails, those attacks end up getting shunted to the claw. But like either, like it makes 10 attacks in melee, like 10 with like full rerolls to everything. And then when you go to back to kill it, T7, 9 wounds, -1 damage taken, 5 up invulnerable save, 5 up feel no pain.
It's just bonkers. This is bonkers.
But don't worry, guys. At 145 points, they're pointed appropriately. What
you know, at the rate that GW is writing rules, like the trend that they're doing, like I'm so excited for my Chaos Space Marines Codex 2 years from now, because then they'll just have a virus bomb every game.
At least Succubi like die after they go in. Like it hits harder than Succubi, but it's also like is like tankier than like a freaking Lehman Russ. But oh my goodness, at least it's twice as expensive. But my god, that model is insane.
Yeah. So when that Dreadnought ended up killing the captain and charging into the Indominus kill team, I was able to pop Transhuman Physiology, and he kills all the heavy intercessors and 1 Eradicator through Transhuman. So like 12 wounds. Oh, sorry, 15 wounds of models. With a with keep in mind a 5 of Philip Bane. It's just hilarious the amount of damage that model does. Because I have the Inceptor in the squad, I'm able to spend a CP to fall back and shoot without penalty. Apothecary reanimates the Eradicator. We fire once again all of those Melta shots and the Melta shots from Chungus into that thing. Once again, failed to wound with everything. Don't get me wrong. There were probably some tactical decision mistakes I could have made, could have done better, but 24 Melta gun shots, and I also think I fired a Macroplasma Incinerator into that thing on the previous turn. That should have been able to kill it, but it didn't. Or between the explosion and the chip damage with the bolt guns, and then the charging with my characters, I did get it down to 3 wounds. So, like, if any of those Meltas had gone through once in any of that shooting, the thing was probably dead. But that didn't happen. I ended up having to charge my last fully healthy Dreadnought into it, kill it, but then it fights on death and just kills the Dreadnought back. So, like, what was supposed to be a free resource trade for me ends up just being I lose one of my last big assets in the game. Even with that, I only lose by 8 points. So, my takeaway, and we can get to this at the end of the stream, I don't think that Orc list was optimized. I think it was the classic. My codex has come out a week ago. Here's my first rendition of list. This might even be fully all the models I want to play.
Yeah, right. Featuring models I own.
Yeah. I think an optimized list. I don't think even with a little bit better luck, I don't think I have a great matchup. I think I could build a list to beat the Orc list. But I once again would be like trading. I'd be making my list weaker in other matches.
Right. Just out of curiosity, were all of his models painted, or like was it? All right. So like I feel like he's even like. So he's even like maybe a little bit further behind the curve in terms of like the full output of that codex, because it seems like he was committed to just playing painted models.
Yeah, so he's a teammate of mine, and he's like quite the hobbyist. His armies are often pretty impressively hobbied, and he's been going nuts on like trying to get the new Orc stuff up and looking good. Keep in mind, like the Squig Sword boss, like that model's not out yet. He's like that's completely kit bashed.
Yeah, I had a small when I was looking at it. It felt like it was on a. I don't know. Did you see it in the tournament, Ben?
It's on an 80mm, wasn't it?
Yeah, is that the right base size?
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay.
It is colossal.
Okay.
Because GW went from like there's one kind of Squig, the Squig. Some of them are a little smaller, some of them are a little bigger. To there are Squigs, Mangler Squigs, Trampler Squigs, Squigosaurs, Commando Squigs. Like now there's 11 different types of Squigs, and the Squigosaurs are the second biggest, so they're really big. The biggest ones are the Trampler Squigs, which are the ones that drag the kill rig. Yeah, Rob and I are both pretty sure that it's on the 80mm. Well, Rob is the Orc player team on the podcast before.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I've been thinking that matchup was very interesting. I'm glad I had a close game. The unfortunate thing that happened with that, just finishing out my tournament, when I went into the losers bracket, my next 2 games I scored 100 points to 58, and then 94 to 17. I just like it's unfortunate because my list I think was very good, but the second I lost the first round, reasonably I lost the first round. I just like didn't have real matchups at that point.
I mean that tends to happen if you lose the first round, because then you're just going against everybody who didn't win.
Oh, it happens. Round. I agree. It's just unfortunate that like I lost a very close game.
Right, by 8 points, and that's a pretty thin margin.
And as I said, if I just get a little bit better variance with like either the Dreadnought not exploding, my captain was on 3 wounds. I had to roll exactly 3 wounds. He was next to an apothecary, so if I rolled any 6s, like there was just an entire chain of events that like caused me to lose that game by that number of points. the Meltaguns could have done more. Like, I don't want to blame dice, but there was a string of like very unfortunate things that changed into like when at one point in the game where I felt like I was very far ahead to losing by just a little bit.
So I'd like to talk more about orcs at the end, definitely get more opinions, make more of your opinions on them, given that you've now played against them in a tournament setting. But I think it'd be interesting to discuss the AdMech FAQ, then talk about an AdMech list I played against that was featuring that FAQ, and then kind of go into how we see orcs and AdMech, or orcs and newly nerfed AdMech shaping the meta from here on.
Yep. So yeah, AdMech FAQ came out this past week. I mean, it hasn't gone into effect for most tournaments, so we haven't seen like the actual like tournament results fall out of it.
Yeah, of course.
But it does bring about significant changes to AdMech, and for the most part, I think they're pretty fair. You know, GW didn't just kill whatever was, you know, people had just dropped hundreds of dollars on for models. You know, like chicken walkers are still good. You know,
Yeah,
they're
so
just not core.
Let me start off by just like actually going through what happened, and then you guys can
Let's
sort of
do them
react.
one
So,
at a time.
yeah, I have the FAQ in front of me right now. So just so like in the literal order that they changed it. The Solar Blessing changed the first bullet point of this dogma to every time an attack with damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to a model with this dogma, unless that model is already receiving the benefit of light cover, add 1 to any armory saving throw against that attack. So that is the Lucius dogma that was giving them +1 on saves, so it no longer stacks with light cover.
I like it.
Yeah, it was that one was pretty sorely needed.
So this goes to the common thing of eternal balance, where I feel like you can now think about taking a lot more chapters. Unfortunately,
You can play Mars now. It's not just like pick Lucius or lose.
yeah, I think there's a custom uh, Forge World you can take. You can still take Lucius, and I think you can take Mars. There's 3 options now. I think, but I still think it's only those 3 options, so it's a little bit more balanced.
Well, let me start off with my opinion of I still think AdMech is still broken. I think that there are lists that can compete with the rest of the meta out of almost every Forge World. But if you're looking to just like smash other people, yeah, there's a custom Forge World, there's Mars, and there's Lucius.
Yeah, sorry, I thought we were gonna do the take on the whole at the end. I'm in agreement that I think
Yeah.
I agree they didn't want to just like nerf what people had bought to the ground, but we were talking about an S plus tier army, and now they're probably just an S minus.
Mhm. All right. Next change, acquisition at any cost. This is the 2 CP, pick an objective marker, every unit within 6 of it auto passes morale. It has been changed. Change the end of the last sentence of the strategy to be, if this unit is wholly within 6 of that objective marker, it is automatically passed, and add the following sentence to the stratagem. You can only use the stratagem once.
I'm down for it.
Yeah. So previously, as they had 20-man blobs, they'd kind of just string them to objectives and then spend 2 CP and make their entire army immune to morale, which was good.
For 1 CP too.
Yeah.
Was it 1 CP? Oh, okay. Sure. So now you have to be wholly within 6 of that objective. So you're like actually have to be like, yeah, the unit's actually trying to hold it, not like here's these 20 dudes who are in the general vicinity of that objective. So I think it used to be
Don't
within.
quote me on it being 1 CP. I think it's 1 CP.
Okay. I think it used to be within 3, and that's wholly within 6, which is like a lot harder with a 20-man squad. And then limiting it to once per game is just like, yeah, it's that stratagem is like pretty hard. You'll still see it used. All right, the 2 big ones. Enriched rounds change the cost to 2 CP/1 CP. Change the end of the sentence to an unmodified successful hit roll of 5 up automatically wounds the target. Add, if that unit contains 11 or more models, this stratagem costs 2 CP. Otherwise, it costs 1 CP.
I don't know if you have the actual book. Did that make them remove the doesn't work on vehicles restriction? Sorry, just reiterating
It
that
did
now.
not
Okay.
change any part about vehicles.
Okay, good.
So two things it did here. Amusingly, by changing it to 5, it doesn't matter again. They did add successful hit roll. Before, it didn't have to be successful, so you could be like, I'm hitting on 5s, but my 4s would do. But with the way hit and ballistic skill stacking works, 5 is the worst it could be hitting on anyway. So, why they changed that, who knows? But more importantly, 5 ups instead of 4 ups, 2 CP if it's 20 dudes. What are your thoughts?
I think a lot of that value from the 20-man unit of Skitarii Vanguard was that enriched rounds was only 1 CP, and it would just apply to the entire 20-man squad. That just made it like a great bang for buck for your CP, and there's more. You're getting more CP than 8th edition, but CP is still like a pretty precious resource that you gotta use carefully. You got to be mindful of how you use your CP. But enriched rounds, you were just like windmill slam dunking it every chance you got because it was so good on a 20-man squad. 2 CP, now you gotta that's twice the cost. It's not an automatic choice anymore. Is it still good? Does it still have a purpose? Absolutely. Is it in every turn like smash the button stratagem? No.
I actually think I disagree with you. I think you're still pressing the button every turn.
Yeah. It's a lot less egregious. It puts it closer to in line with. So like I think about like the intercessor double tap stratagem. It's like it's a lot closer to that stratagem now, which that stratagem hasn't been an issue. So I still think it's good because doubling anything is good in the game, and this is effectively doubling the threat range. And on a strength 3 gun, a lot of times doubling that threat range is just actually doubling the damage. Not quite, but pretty close.
Right. I mean, like, I'm not saying that like it's bad now, or that like since now it's 2 CP that like that it's going to be a rare chance that you actually use the stratagem. What I'm saying is it's like instead of being automatic 100% of the time, now it's automatic. I'd say maybe like probably closer to on the low end 75% of the time.
I still think you're going to use it 2 times.
I still think you use it every turn.
I don't think it's every turn, Ben.
It's going to be every turn until all your rangers are dead, which admittedly might only be 2 or 3 times because you do have to like put them in front of your opponent, and they are only toughness 3. But it's still just 20 wounds at AP1.
Right. I guess the thing is without it, it's that you don't. It's 20 wounds at AP1 as opposed to 10 wounds at AP1 with no CP. And like, are you telling me?
Well, this is like where we get into you can just play Mars and reroll all the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s.
It's true.
Okay. So in a certain faction with a certain buff from from a fairly expensive character, yes, I think you're always using that. But that's the classic. Once you combo everything, of course you're using it. We're talking about is like Lucius using it every time? No. Is the custom Forged using it every time? No.
I mean, I had to play against this in Lucius, and it felt like there's never a reason for my opponent not to slam this as long as he had Vanguard on the table. Like it just does infinite damage unless you're a vehicle. They still just blow away everything. Like you don't need your command points if your opponent just doesn't have models. It's not that much less worse. Like it just does so much damage.
That's a good point that I hadn't considered. You don't need command points if your enemy is just dead. And if it costs 2 CP instead of 1 CP, like let's say over the course of the game, now it costs you 6 CP instead of 3 CP to get 3 rounds of shooting out of your Vanguard and just table your opponent.
Like we were talking about,
it's totally worth it.
Yeah, like we were talking about how like AdMech were just like playing these like very silly games where they're tabling people in 3 turns. Like they can't spend all their command points in 3 turns. Like if they table you in 3 turns and spend all of their command points instead of tabling you in 3 turns and spend half their command points, like this doesn't change anything. The 5-up is the thing, like, does make it worse for sure. But
But
like,
it doesn't like make it unusable at all. It's still very much like very usable.
I just don't think you're actually. I'm not convinced you're using it every turn.
I mean, you're not. You run out of Vanguard eventually, but the thing is, if you don't run out of Vanguard, it's because your opponent ran out of models. It's just like we can agree to disagree. I still think that Vanguard are going to need more changes. This is a step in the right direction. Costing 2 CP and only on 5s is certainly better than what it was doing before. But I still don't feel like I could ever be like, I'm going to play Space Marines while Vanguard exists. They still just get blown away.
Right. I mean, my whole thing about like it being like a decision is just for the overall like just general like good game design. If I make something so good that I am putting myself at a super huge disadvantage by not doing it every single turn, then that's bad game design. You know?
So yes and no. Something like Fire and Fade. You're like, I'm going to Fire and Fade my Dark Reapers every turn. Like, Dark Reaper at one point that was problematic. Where Dark Reapers are now, I don't think you could ever be like, oh, I'm going to use Dark Reapers and not Fire and Fade them unless you're using indirect fire off of them. But they also don't feel egregious because it's just like their firepower for their points cost isn't like that's not an okay ratio. There's just a strategy that you need to use to make them workable in that particular way. AdMech's firepower is still egregious. Like, we'll see. Maybe the middle will be able to adapt into this. They're certainly weaker than they were before, but that's like a very low bar to set. They were unbelievably overpowered before.
I agree. Yeah. As we said before, I still think that they're going to need a balancing. I'm more on. You take this out of the Mars example and into the Lucius example. I have a hard time believing that 2 CP is worth 10 AP1 successful wounds. Don't get me wrong, 10 AP1 successful wounds is like good, but there's some matchups where you just that's not that good. So like you do that into broadsides, that's 3 wounds.
Yeah, but you're not doing it into the broadsides. You do it into the drones, and then you shoot las cannons at the broadsides, which is what my opponent did. Spoiler alert. But yeah, let's talk about the next change because this one's like interesting. Galvanic Volley Fire. Change the last sentence of this stratagem to Galvanic rifle models in this unit that this unit are equipped with have a type characteristic of heavy 3. So this is the Ranger weapon. It's a heavy 2 weapon at, I believe it's 4-1-1. And previously the strat would turn it into a rapid fire 2. So now the strat turns it into heavy 3, which is very different. This is an interesting change. What do you guys think about this one?
I think this is an interesting change, not because it's not a straight nerf. It's more of a side grade than anything else, because going from rapid 2 to heavy 3, like sometimes you get more shots, sometimes you don't, sometimes you get a penalty to hit. It just, I don't think there's a huge overall net up or down for the value of it. Is there going? Yeah, there of course there's a net, but I don't think it's a huge one.
It's definitely weaker than the nerf that the enriched rounds got, but I also felt like it was closer to correct anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
It is kind of boring now.
Yeah.
What?
One more shot per model. Yeah. I do think there was an issue with them before because the difference between heavy 3 and rapid fire 2 is very significant. It's not only is it one more shot per model, it's also one more. It's also +1 to hit because if you move, you don't have penalties. And for example, Lucius, if you take a Lucius squad, well, it's base 30 inches range, and then because of Lucius, it's +3, so it's 33, and then you manipulate it, so it's 39, and now it's they're within 19 inches, 19 and a half inches, they can rapid fire, and like that's getting pretty far. So like wasn't in like given like I don't know like the scouring, like you could be on your objective shooting at their objective, you're within 19 and a half. Like objectives are just so much closer that the rapid fire thing was not that big of a deal. So I think keeping it as heavy is the correct call. I'm glad they didn't just, and it also then means that Rangers really do get to play the thing of like, okay, well, if it's 39 inches, we can now actually play it as 39 inches. Like the Rangers can really just like sit way back and shoot while the Vanguard take all of the defensive buffs and go forward and do things.
Vanguard play a Vanguard role again.
Yeah, because before Rangers were just like also Vanguard. You're just like, I want to get them within rapid fire range, which is about the range of the Vanguard gun, a little bit shorter. Made them play weird. It is definitely a nerf. Like this is a lot worse, but it lets them it lets them play the role of backline shooting better than before. So we'll see if that becomes popularized.
It's a change that doesn't obliterate like the usefulness of the
strat.
Yeah, of the strat.
Yeah, well, it changes it, right? It goes from like you only wanted to use the strat if you were close to like, all right, like whenever. It went from being like it was more than doubling the damage output of the unit if you were in close range because it was +1 hit, double your firepower, and now it's 50% more firepower, which is a lot less, but no penalty to hit, or rather, but no requirement to be within half range, which sometimes will be no penalty to hit because you just like sit still and shoot. Yeah, I think it's fine. All right, this is the big one. Iron Strider Balustrari, Delete Core, Sidonian Dragoons, Delete Core. So chicken walkers of both melee and shooty variety have lost core. I'm just gonna talk about the melee ones real quick. They were fine. They weren't really seeing a ton of competitive play. I'm pretty sure they just did this to not confuse people because, like, why just some of the things with legs have core and some of them don't? And they're just like, all right, everything doesn't have core. But the ones we care about are Iron Striders. So
I agree. Real quick on that, I agree with that decision on their part. I think if you are going to,
all right, Iron Striders. What do we think? No more core.
I don't know why they were core to begin with. I think JW has missed the mark with core since the inception of it. Like it hasn't been consistently used at all. And I think all of the they should have for 9th edition they should have just printed in the rulebook aura abilities only affect friendly infantry, bikers, and dreadnoughts, excluding characters. That's all you needed to do. You didn't need to introduce a whole new keyword and then give yourself the opportunity to, be inconsistent with applying that keyword to the units. Because look at the Necron Codex. How many units are core in there? 3?
4.
4? As opposed to every single
warriors,
Skitarii
immortals,
data
bikers, Lich Guard. Maybe it's just 4.
Yeah, and then every other Skitarii data sheet that's not a character is core. It's inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The original creation of the core keyword was because they wanted to be able to start pointing at Centurions and be like, things don't affect those because we can't write auras without people just being like, put it on Centurions.
They had it figured out. Look at the Chaos Space Marines thing for the Legion traits. It only affects infantry, bikers, and Hellbrutes.
Centurions and infantry. So they clearly were like, we want to be able to print Centurion like models for other factions potentially, and not have them be problematic because they just have too much stuff in one place for auras to multiply it. The idea of the core keyword was fine, and then they're like, what if this I don't even know how to describe the Iron Strider's weapon because it's not analogous to anything. It's D3 plus 3, strength 9, AP 3, 2 shots because
it's super auto cannon.
Yeah, it's a super las cannon. People usually bring the las cannon ones because the auto cannons are very good, but it turns out that Vanguard kind of just kill all those targets better. and then like, all right, what if it rerolled ones to hit and wound, and then in matchups where your opponent only brings vehicles, you can just stack all the defensive buffs on it instead of your infantry. I don't know what you're doing, GW. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could see where they were going with core, but like they just continually miss the mark with what is core and what's not, and what affects core and what's not.
We haven't actually said what we feel about this. This change is great. They should never have been
yes,
core.
The change. Chicken walkers should not be core. This change is good. I don't know why they were core in the first place.
I think there's a problem though. So while we're deleting the core is okay, there's already a bunch of designs assuming they were core. One of those in particular being what's its name? The
Marshall.
The Marshal, also the certain legion that works with Cognis, where you get to reroll everything.
Yeah, so there. Do you want to run through that?
Yeah,
sub-faction or
so it's a sub-faction where if you're at half range, you have to reroll all your hit rolls
with Cognis weapons.
With Cognis weapons, which is just everything they have. And you can give them all vehicles a 6+ Phono Pain.
Yeah, it's vehicles get a 6 of Phono Pain. You get like 3 options, one of which is Cognis weapons to reroll everything. So if you still want to just like run a bunch of Sidonian Dragoons rerolling all your hit rolls, you can just do that.
And I feel like that design probably wouldn't have existed if like the original monstrosity that was the AdMech Codex hadn't been released. Like this is where like a second tier of nerfs is going to be necessary, because while they were trying to stop something from happening, they realized that like you were getting a slightly, like that was supposed to be a slightly worse option, but now that they've deleted core, it's the best option. But it's like it was only slightly worse. It was slightly worse, but it was only slightly worse, which means they haven't moved the needle down that much as much as you would think deleting core should be.
We're gonna see like if I think the AdMech infantry lists are still just excellent, but like when we get round 2 of nerfs that like puts AdMech infantry in a reasonable place that where they can compete with everyone else, we're gonna see lists that are just like here's 25 chicken walkers and 5 AdMech airplanes. They all get full rerolls hit because of their chapter tactic, and then we're gonna have to deal with that list because that's also not okay.
Gosh. Could you imagine if Space Marines had like if you're half range with bolters, you just reroll all your hit rolls? That'd be more reasonable.
Bolters.
That'd be dope, actually.
They're las cannons. Like, they didn't write bolters. They just wrote like Cognis. What's a Cognis weapon? Everything that we've strapped to all of the new vehicles plus Iron Shredders. All the airplanes are monocognis weapons. Like the shooty airplane has like I think it has 2 Phosphor Blasters that aren't Cognis, and then it has like 8 heavy stubber shots and 2 las cannon shots. Some of them just have 16 heavy stubber shots. Like they're just all Cognis weapons. And you just like slap on a 6-0 Freeland Pain on top of that and then just reroll everything. It's just like another problematic list. And like it's not as busted as the infantry stuff right now, but I still think it's better than what everyone else could do.
The thing that annoys me about Cognis weapons is more along the lines of like, if you say what a laser cannon is, like everybody knows like what the profile is generally speaking, but then instead of just coming up with like a new name for something for a new weapon, you just stick Cognis on the front of it, and now everybody else to specify whether or not like the laser cannon does D6 or D3 plus 3.
Well, they've always had Cognis weapons. The old Cognis shtick used to be you could advance and shoot them at -2, which no one ever did because it's terrible. And then they replaced that with just more shots and more damage. So like Cognis.
Go ahead. I look at
you first.
I look at Sisters with their. We want this 5-point upgrade to be worthwhile. So like a Stormbolter isn't actually worth 5 points. Let's make Stormbolters better. And I like that because it justifies the upgrade. And like you still run into the issue of like now we have different types of Stormbolters. They technically have different names, but like.
Yeah, it's still just it recalls them. I mean, I do. I'm like, it's a Stormbolter, but it's damage too. Like, yeah,
right. But the problem with Cognis was it's like it's not like these are upgrades. It's not like you're like these are just like the baseline weapons. We're just like making strictly better weapons for this faction because we wanted to.
Yeah, all of their all like the heavy steppers. There's like, what if every anti-infantry gun in this faction just had one more shot than normal? Every single one. Also, all the vehicles are bristling with them. Every new AdMech vehicle has at least 2 Cognis heavy steppers. Most of them have 3. Some of them have 4.
Yeah.
So let me talk about my game with AdMech at the tournament. I also played against it round 1, the Scouring. We had a interesting deployment zone. Pretty good terrain. It's like pretty dense. There's like basically a square, like a square in the middle of the table. It was like 2 big L's that were like facing each other. So not the normal Nova L's where they're pointing away, but rather they're pointing in. So there's like a diagonal line between them that you can see through. And it was like pretty clear that I could not put my models in that diagonal line, or I was just going to get like murdered to death. Although given the movement capabilities of AdMech, basically I was never gonna be able to hide for more than like 1 or 2 units. And we were playing with the new FAQ. So I start putting down my Pathfinders, which I do I usually start deploying with my Pathfinders because they can scout move, so they can kind of just move over to where the rest of my army actually ends up being. I'm playing Tau, so I'm going to deploy in a blob. It's the same list as always is 9 broadsides, 2 units of Pathfinders, Riptide with a relic cannon, a Skyray, 20-ish shield drones, a commander with 2. Actually, I put some flamers on the commander because I had some points left over, so he can participate in Overwatch. And basically, my opponent like starts off with 20 Vanguard. Put a couple characters down. Like puts 20 Rangers down, like behind one of his L's. And I look at where those Rangers are, and I go, okay, well, given the epic mobility, I can't hide from him anything that can move, but I can hide from those Rangers. So I'm just going to deploy my whole army to hide from those Rangers because that's the only thing I'm going to be able to hide from anyway. So I kind of deploy behind my part of the L to stay away from those Rangers. His list was 20 Rangers, actually no, 40 Rangers, 40 Vanguard, if I remember correctly. Like 7 Chicken Walkers, an airplane, 1 mortar tank, a Manipulus, a engine seer. I think that's it. So it was just a ton of infantry and then a couple of vehicles. Some of the dog scouts and some of the forward deploying guys. And basically, like, I have to go first. Like this is just how AdMech works. And I managed to go first, so I did get to. You
managed to. How'd you skill your way into
first.
that?
I rolled a 2, and I was like, oh crap! And then he rolled a 1. I was like, great, just as planned. This is always how this was going to happen. So first I moved all my broadsides like to the left. So basically we have like this big square in the middle of the table. His Rangers are like over here. I'm like moving my guys around. So I'm just like twisting my army around, trying to like keep most of the terrain between myself and some of his infantry. Because his guy with the solar flare is like towards the blobs that I'm rotating towards. So if he's going to teleport a unit, it's a unit that could already shoot at me anyway. And he also on the other the from the side of the table that I'm hiding from is also where his airplane is, and the airplanes don't get obscured, so I can shoot all my long range weapons at the airplane anyway. So my marker light tank moves up, gets some marker lights on the airplane. I fire every once per game missile in my army at the airplane to kill it. I fire railguns at chicken walkers, bunch of direct missiles at the Skitarii infantry I can see. And kill all of the scout movement and scout deployed guys with my indirect fire. My list is an unbelievable amount of firepower. So basically on turn 1, I kill 16 of the Vanguard I can see, 10 of the Rangers I can see, 4 chicken walkers, the airplane, 5 scouts, and 5 dogs. So it's like 25, 30-ish Skitarii are dead, a bunch of vehicles. He's taken like stranglehold, so he's got to like move up to a bunch of objectives. I took While We Stand We Fight, bring it down, and raise banners. So he kills a couple units. He doesn't have a good solar flare target, which was like my main plan was like I think it was a little bit of a misdeploy on his part where he didn't have 2 units. Like, he couldn't really get his rangers in range of the solar flare. He only had 1 unit, and so that's the unit I just hammered. Like, he could have solar flared 4 Vanguard, and like that's not really a threat. So his Vanguard started like kind of going around the long way of the table to like kind of circle around in my army. So his turn 1, he doesn't really kill that much. Kills like some drones, and that's kind of it. So my turn 2, I just basically get to do it again and take him down to like 2 chicken walkers left. The tank, he still has like 30-ish Skitari, 10 of which are like back on one of his objectives. The other 20 rangers are untouched, like coming around behind my army. His turn 2, not too much happens. He does start whittling away at my front shield drones. I like redeploy them all. He has hidden more of his army now because there's not that much left, so I don't really get to do much direct fire on my turn 3. And then his turn 3, those rangers come around the back of my army. The Vanguard rather managed to get her all the way around to the back of my army because he's playing the new Servitor Maniple. I should probably have mentioned that, or the Skitari Maniple rather, where they all have they advance extra far. I believe it's like 2d6 pick the highest when they advance, so that his guys are like moving. Pops the 2 CV strat to auto wound of 5s. Shoots his unit, kills every shield drone in my army, or just about. Fires his last 2 dragoons, picks up 2 broadsides. And it's just like, man, I've been shooting basically my entire army at him for 3 turns, which most people would have been folded at that point. And I mean, he's very little left, and somehow he's still able to just like kill 18 shield drones and 2 broadsides in like 1 round of shooting. Like I was just like shocked at how much firepower that list had, even when I felt like I had just like completely taken the teeth out of the list. He was down to like 2 vehicles and like 20 infantry left, and he was still just like, the second he managed to get line of sight of me with those infantry, he was just like, all right, pick up everything. So my experience was that it's not as tanky specifically against my list. It's not particularly tanky because even when he transhumans a unit, I can full reroll against it with like 50 attacks, all of high armor penetration. So I'm still able to just like pick up a bunch of dudes because 4-ups rerolling isn't like significantly worse than like 3s. It's actually just better. Although actually my army wounds on 2s because I'm strength 7. So it definitely felt worse than it did before, like for sure, but it still felt really strong. It was also neat too seeing the Skitari Maniple because that did matter against me. I don't know if I'm using the right word for it. The Skitari is the Maniple, right? Or is that right?
No, it's the Vanguard cohort.
The Skitari cohort?
Vanguard cohort.
The Vanguard cohort? Okay. The Vanguard cohort. Which is neat because they all had 5-up invulnerable saves, which gave them a lot more durability against my AP3 weapons. He didn't actually end up using any of like the special stratagems for that. He just used the classic, like, give myself more heavy weapon shots, give myself auto wounding. He auto passed morale in a couple places, command reroll, stuff like that. I end up winning on points because we're playing 2 heinously shooting armies on the Scouring, and I'm playing Tau, so I can never put dudes on a second objective. He just instantly kills them, which means I can't score primary points. Which means that I can't let him score primary points. So he scored primary for 1 turn. It was turn 4. He's got 10 points. I scored primary on 1 turn. It was turn 5. I got 15. So our final score was 56 to 30 something. Like neither of us scored any points. It was an absolute bloodbath in which no one scored any points. It was kind of a funny game. We were both laughing about it at the end. But yeah, I mean, I ended up tabling him. He had 1 Tech Priest Manipulus cowering in the corner of the table, out of range of my indirect fire at the end of the game. But that's because I went first, and because I think the missed deploy where he couldn't solar flare. If he could have solar flared on turn 1, I just lose. Like, there's no way I survive, even when he only has the 3 chicken walkers left. Because those 20 Vanguard just kill every shield drone on my list, and then the chicken walkers blow up a unit of broadsides, and I've lost then because I can't really come back from that. So I was very concerned about the amount of firepower coming on that list still, especially like because if I had gone second, it is nothing. Like there's nothing I could have done if I had gone second in that matchup.
Interesting. All
right.
So how do you think that game would have gone differently if this FAQ was in effect?
It was an effect. We were playing.
It was? Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, that it was. Yeah.
I remember the announcement now.
Yeah. So yeah, this FAQ was like I said, this FAQ was in effect. The Vanguard were weaker, but they were still obscene shooting into shield drones. Shooting into broadsides, broadsides are 2 up. They didn't actually really ever got to shoot into broadsides. Only took a couple shots from Vanguard into broadsides. Because for the most part, whenever Vanguard drew line of sight on broadsides, they shot at shield drones and then died on the crackback. Which is correct. He's supposed to be killing shield drones with them and then have the last cannons pick up the broadsides. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from when I'm saying that the enriched rounds still just felt insane. Like he only got to shoot with a full unit a single time, and it picked up 16 shield drones. And that's like,
I can see where you would say, yeah, I'm still windmill slamming it every chance I get.
Yeah, because it wasn't like he didn't particularly like need command points for that much stuff. Like auto passing morale, with like the actual like core rule auto pass morale check. He did that like once or twice. Or sorry, he did it once, and then he did the ad mech auto pass morale once on a unit that was got like reduced down to like 1 dude on an objective. But like he didn't really need CP.
So I think in the end you were right about the whole stratagem, thinking about it more. But I think this more goes with a generic issue of AdMech where what do they need to use their CP on, right? All their units and all their buffs are just free. They just get.
Yeah, it feels like the difference between this and the Ore Codex. The Ore Codex, their baseline stats are excellent and their strats are not great. But they very much are incentivized to split their units around into different detachments. So it feels like they do have a thing they want to spend command points on. So they're like, oh, I want to use I want all these different detachments. And like Skitari, like my opponent was 1 detachment because all of that fits in 1 detachment. They have excellent choices in every slot. Their elite scouts are incredible. Their fast attacks are the Iron Striders, which come in huge bricks, and the dogs, which are really good, but you don't really want more than 1 or 2 units of them. Their troop choices are insane, so they're perfectly happy to pick 3 of them for a battalion. They would love to bring 3 to 5 HQs, but their HQs can go into extra slots for free. So the versions of the list that are like, oh, I want 5 HQs, you can just do that in a battalion, so you don't have to bring a second one. Their airplanes are good, so they're oftentimes going to just take an airplane, but that fits in a battalion. So they don't their list building is free. They spend no command points on extra detachments, like almost ever, because Lucius just does everything. Lucius is the solution to all of your problems if you're playing on mech. It gives you extra range, it gives you extra durability, it gives you extra mobility. Like, why would you take a different Forge World? Lucius needs to get toned down, like even more.
No, I think AdMech on a whole just needs to. Yeah, yes, but I think that's just like a generic AdMech problem.
Yeah, like there was someone else playing AdMech at the event. They took like a bunch of servitors in Castellan robots in I think it was Metallica, and did some like the Metallica robot stuff. And like, you know what? That list was very good. It didn't look egregious to me. I never got to play against it. I talked to 1 or 2 teammates who played against it, and like one of them lost, one of them won. They're like, yeah, it seemed strong, but it wasn't like heinously overwhelming. But like when you push the AdMech lists to be overwhelming, they're insane. Like they're just insane. And so I'm good friends with the person who I played against. We had a good discussion afterward, discussed a couple of mistakes that he'd made. I'm concerned once he figures out, like, next time I'm sure he's not gonna make the deployment mistake again, and it's not clear to me how even going first, I'm supposed to win that game. Like even if I go first and I kill like a third of his army, which I did, I think I just get tabled on the crackback, which is insane because if he goes first and has his entire army, there's like
then you get tabled.
Nothing. There's nothing. Like seven chicken walkers coming around a corner and shooting at me after a unit of Vanguard pick up like 16 shield drones. Like Okay. Like, I'm dead. There's nothing I can do.
You have achieved victory.
Yeah. So I did get some shoulder pats from the team for knocking the AdMech Menace list off of the path of victory. And I also got some questions. Mostly, how did you do that with Tau? Which I'll see you back to. Like, Tau are good. Like, Tau is just a good army. They're not tier 1. They're not BD. They're not gonna be, crushing Dark Elder at the top tables. But like, they can just get you.
I think a lot of people just get like wrapped up in the like what's the absolute top of the meta, and if you're not, then that means that your army is just total trash tier and it's never going to win games. That's not true. I mean, like, player skill still takes like a pretty big chunk of it too. I mean, look at Siegler. He's still winning events with Tau. Granted, it's Richard Siegler, but
yeah. Well, it's also like, I mean, if you look at his list, look at my list. His list is a bit different. He's a little bit more interested in scoring secondaries than I am. But we both just like took a gigantic hammer unit, and like people just aren't used to dealing with that. We took different hammer units. He's running crisis suits. I'm running broadsides, but like, I don't know. It's just like you're just like forcing your own to play a very different game. And you're like, I have this unit that will pick up multiple other units that if they walk near it, like it just goes away. His deep strike, which sort of like emulates indirect fire. Whereas mine just like walks up the table and shoots at things they can't see. But I want to talk about how we see AdMech affecting the Vanguard mana pool and Orcs sort of affecting the meta. Because the first thing I want to call out is that I think Rangers have gotten worse. Like between the Ranger change and the Vanguard change, I think the Rangers took the bigger hit. We'll probably be seeing fewer of those and even more Vanguard. And the other thing I want to talk about is the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy. Kevin, would you like to tell us about the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy?
Orc should be bringing probably 7 to 9 of them. And I'd say they're really efficient, but like by the time you get to 9, you might not be able to hide them and you start to lose the advantage of indirect fire at that point. And I'd rather just take some missile ones, but they're silly. They're just. Yeah. Did you like broadsides? How do you like more efficient broadsides?
Yeah, so they are 2d6 attacks with an assault weapon. Why is it assault? Who knows? So it's 2d6 shots at 36 inches, strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage. It hits on 5, but this weapon gets +1 to hit, so it's 4s. And there's another d6 attacks at 18 inches at 5, -2, 2. So in total, it's 3d6 attacks at 5, -2, 2. 2d6 of them are hitting on 4s at 36. 1d6 is 18, hitting on 5s. These weapons are blast, and they don't have to see you. It also has a shotgun, but whatever. Also, it's like not terrible at melee. It's like 4 attacks at 7, -2, 2. Like, there's just nothing to write home about. But like, I don't know, if you like charge some like jump pack Marines into it to like tie it up in melee, like it's just gonna start eating them, which is kind of funny. And then the other reason to take 7 is because if you have a unit of 1 for 25 points, you can give it +1 to wound. So you can take 2 units of 3 and then take 1 with +1 to wound. Like, is a real thing that I think a lot of orc lists are going to be doing rather. Rob and I have been talking a lot about orcs, and we've kind of just been starting every list with 7 of those. Yeah, that unit, it's completely monstrous.
Hey, I'm going to a tournament with Rob, and he's not bringing 7.
Well, he doesn't own 7 yet, but he's building them.
Rob, why you betray me?
And one of the things I want to talk about is, because my opponent took the Vanguard mana pool, and this is a really important rule, is that 20-man unit of Vanguard don't count as being more than 5 models for the purposes of blast weapons.
What the fuck?
Really, yeah. Yep, that's just a thing that they do. And this is super important because blast wasn't really that relevant against them until the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy for 270 points can make 54 attacks into that unit. If you call a Speed Wall, it goes to AP 3, which all of a sudden is breaking through the ignore AP 1 and AP 2 barrier that they're going to be putting on one of their units. and it's just going to be blowing that unit away, like completely blowing it away, until they're back to 3d6 attacks because they don't count as more than 5 dudes. I don't know. Someone slipped that in during the rules writing and it just kind of like stayed there. Yeah, so so they both go to 5 with 1 roll saves. They both get +1 attack, +1 leadership for being vets. The Rangers get cover as long as they haven't moved, and the Vanguard advance on 2d6 and only count as being 5 dudes for blast. And that's like, I just want to like AdMech players might like, if like the Rocket Truck Squig Buggy, I fully expect to see a significant impact on the competitive scene, and I think that a lot of Skitarii players are going to basically have to respond by switching to the Vanguard Maniple to dodge blast.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
The other buggy I want to talk about is the Megatrek Scrapjet. Kevin, I think you had to play against 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah, it just didn't stop shooting missiles. They just
so
kept coming.
Has 3d3 missiles at 8 neg-2-3, and it has another missile at 8 neg-2-3 that gets +1 to hit vehicles. So it's 3d3 +1 missiles per turn. Also has 2 twin big shooters, which are, I believe, DACA 10-6 at 501.
That's a lot of DACA.
Yeah, so just like makes 20 anti-infantry attacks and then like 7 anti-tank attacks every turn. It's also has like a reasonable melee profile. Rob and I have been constructing truly monstrous orc lists that I'm like a little afraid of, where you bring like 7 Squig Buggies and then like 3 to 5 of the track jets, and you put them all in a freebooters attachment. So when the Squig Buggies inevitably blow something off the table with indirect fire, all the scrap jets are hitting on 4s with all their guns. This list makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't like anything that this list is doing. It's just so much firepower. But unlike broadsides, everything's really fast and sort of independent. Like nothing is like, oh, once you crack that unit, the whole list falls apart. So every unit just like independently operates, has better defensive stats, moves 12 plus inches. Also, we have insane melee characters to back up the whole thing. Oh, this scares me.
Yeah, no, I need to play against it. It was interesting. Because in the matchup I played when there was only 2, an apothecary just like kind of kept it all locked down. Like everything he shot, the apothecary just said. And then it's back. And I need to see what it's like when it's actually an oppressive amount of that firepower. But I also know that like part of the reason he was able to beat me was because he had all the other assets that like I had to shoot at and were able to move up the board. I just I need to make sure that like while that is a lot of DACA, how is he still moving up the board and taking control of the board? Like what is the
orcs don't cost any points. Like the list that Rob and I are writing, it's like 7 Squig Buggies, 4 scrap jets, Gaz, 10 like 2 5-man commander squads, 2 3-man Def Copter squads, 10 Squig, 10 Grots, and 2 Squigosaur bosses. Like nothing costs any points. It's just Drakari. Everything is infinite guns and just infinite damage. At least they're like a bit squishier. But it's scary stuff.
It makes me think Space Marines are going to continue to move into the Dreadnought path.
Yeah. I think Dreadnoughts are probably where they go for Space Marines because all the good orc melee weapons are damage 2, and all the good orc shooting is like damage 2 or damage 3. Your infantry just get blown away, but Dreadnoughts kind of just take it.
Yeah.
Same thing with like AdMech. AdMech's doing the same thing where they're just like, oh, all my things when you go on 5s, just like blow your infantry away, and you're like Dreadnoughts are like, you need 6s. You don't even know how to wound, you just need 6s to wound.
Not that I think this is like necessarily good. I just think like it's like the only list I can see direction I can see Marines going.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in love with it either, but that's probably true. So I think we're still gonna need some time to like really see where orcs land. There's probably like some point things that need to happen to the Squig buggies, but nothing that they're. It's not like the AdMech Vanguard where like spending some command points and like picking up entire units. It's just a points thing. Like you can very easily fix this with like a points thing. So it's not. It's not. I don't think this is egregious because you don't need to change the codex. You just like the next chapter approved. All the buggies probably need to go up like 10 to 15 points, and then it's approaching reasonable again.
Yeah. The Grok Gunner, is it you shoot as though you're BS4 or you get +1 to hit?
Which buggy are we talking about, Kevin? Because sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Really?
Absolutely. So all right.
Okay, the mortar one.
You get +1 to hit.
Okay. So like one thing you can definitely think about doing, we haven't seen Raven Guard in a while, but like Forest exists. If you like Raven Guard behind a Forest, hitting on 6s, you can probably kind of start ignoring that again.
Another reason why I like Be'lakor. Be'lakor is affected by his own Legion's trait, but is also -1 to be hit. So he's -2 to be hit, and you can't reroll hit rolls against him. So you're not shooting any of those orc weapons at him. You're just like, all right, 6s, no rerolls. So yeah, most of the Grok Gunners are +1 to hit, but the Shock Drop Dragsta's like twin las cannon. It's not actually a twin las cannon, but it's functioning as a twin las cannon. Actually is ballistic skill 3.
Interesting.
Which means if it's freeboot, it's going to hit on 2s, which is something that Rob and I were looking at for a while until we realized that you could just get 7 rocket attacks a turn off of a scrapjet that's also making 20 attacks with the machine gun. Just do that.
I understand why they use a different ballistic skill there because they want to do +2 to hit, but you can't because the addition.
Yep. All right. So not to be all doom and gloom. I don't hate where the meta is. Like Skitari got put way down by this FAQ, like significantly. And I think that this is going to give a lot of lists the opportunity to actually like build against them, because before like it didn't matter. Like what was the point? They're just going to table you no matter what you put on the table. I think where they are now, there's like real chances to like just build lists to beat them. And that's good.
I will say when we think about when I talk about that Dreadnought list, the Dreadnought list is almost unimpacted by what they're getting for veterans. Like they're just their models are just actually getting inefficient. And if the orc buggies are making the Vanguard have to spend those points, like otherwise they just lose the matchup, then like between the actual nerf that AdMech got and the effective nerf where their models are kind of going up 2 points if you're not bringing blast weapons, because the invuln save matters, but you get what I'm trying to say. The meta might be closer. I don't know if I agree with you. I still like think about AdMech and I think about like not playing one of the last 4 codexes now, and it's just like, man, that's not a lot of codex.
I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm saying it's healthier than it was before, which is a low bar. I'll admit. I was trying not to make the last 20 minutes of our podcast just like everything's terrible, orcs are broken, AdMech are broken. Wow.
Well, I actually have a question for you if we want to go to a lighter topic.
Sure.
So when we went to the tournament, and I'll be honest, I haven't looked at GTs, but I thought in GTs you could use them. The tournament we went to, you couldn't use book secondaries, like
correct
Space Marine or supplement. Chris, Ben, how do you feel about that?
I don't know.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I like it in theory. I like the idea of putting everyone on equal playing field. I dislike it because we're getting that issue where if, let's just say, the USA doesn't play with the Codex ones and Europe does play with the Codex ones, well, GW is going to balance around in theory, it's balancing around like one of these metas, right? And we're getting to that. We're having an issue where now we're creating 2 different metas where a book might be saying like, oh, this is a free 15-point secondary, so their models are going to go up a little bit more. and then all of a sudden, over in the US, you're not getting those free 15 points, and now your models are getting nerfed. Like, I like the idea that armies are more balanced or like have an even playing field. I'm just concerned that it could lead to a place where armies get nerfed for something they're not actually getting.
So that's it's a New England 40K circuit thing that all the New England 40K judges have decided that they don't want the secondaries in the circuit because the 9th edition codexes are just like so clearly pushed above the 8th edition ones. But the intention is 100% to remove that once every faction has secondaries. So it's not like going to be something that's going to be forever. It's temporary. But yeah, temporarily it could be a problem. As of now, I don't think it is. I think most books are about the same place, like where they just have a secondary that they're taking. Like there's not a lot of books that don't have a secondary that they take. There's a couple, but there's not a lot.
But some secondaries are worth more. Like Oath of Moment is sometimes it's a pretty easy 10 to 13 points. Like a consistent, you almost can't stop it. And there's not a secondary like that. Even like good other faction secondary, sometimes you can just you crush your opponent so they don't get it.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Yeah, Space Marines are definitely the ones that are hit the hardest by that. Which sucks because Space Marines are like the worst 9th edition codex. Right?
That might be Necrons.
We think Necrons are worse than Space Marines? You might be right. No, you're right. You're right. I'm
gonna not say something. I'm gonna look at the stats.
I mean, Tau have a 30% win rate, but that doesn't mean I think Tau are bad. No, I actually agree with you. I think Necrons are probably worse than Space Marines. I think all of their mechanics that their book was designed to work around are already invalidated because you can just pick up 20 Necron warriors like it's nothing in every book. All right, Space Marines are the second worst, and actually, it's even more egregious because Necrons are one of the few books that don't have great codex secondaries. It could be a problem, but generally speaking, I like it. As speaking as someone who plays almost exclusively 8th edition codexes.
Yeah, no,
so I am biased.
It felt when I played against orcs, it was fine. When I played against Tyranids, I'm glad that I didn't just get a free secondary. That was my second round to opponent. And then when I played against Space Marines, obviously we're losing an equal amount there. So, it didn't really affect me in this tournament. So that's not really my complaint. I'm just more concerned that we're talking about that divergent meta thing. Another big thing that's come out. You guys have heard about the player placed terrains for the
Lone Star Open,
yeah.
Yes.
Where all of a sudden that made melee Necrons like an actual viable thing because you're able to place it in a way that the melee models could consistently get across the board. And all of a sudden,
there were a lot of things happening in that tournament that were like, this is not good unless we're doing this. Like Sisters Repentia with Repentia Superiors, Repentia need the perfect place to charge out from. But it turns out if you have the perfect place to charge out from, Repentia Superior go from to really good. All of a sudden, Repentia are advancing and charging on 3d6 and are just always hitting your opponent wherever you hit them. Because you can just put a piece of terrain a foot from a couple of objectives and just be like, there's 15 Repentia behind here and they're all just ready to go.
Yep. We also saw, and this is what I was looking behind at that tournament. Did that come through clearly?
Now no one could hear that.
Fortifications.
Yeah, right. Again, the Sisters thing, just fortification down, and all of a sudden you just have because GW in their infinite wisdom added obscuring to the freaking battle sanctum, which is the size of a city block.
No,
it takes up it probably should be, but the fact that it is insane. It just does so much now, except that you can't put it down. Except for when you can. And when you can, it's really, really good.
And it almost makes it look at that. That almost makes that model sound imbalanceable, where it can be literally unplayable or broken, and there's no in between. The actual secret is that you probably are never bringing it to a tournament where you don't know if you can place it, and if you know you can place it, it should be costed at that point.
Yeah, right. But right now, GW has so little data on it. They printed it at 50 points in the previous codex, and it's just been 50 points forever because it's been unplaceable forever. So, like, they have zero data. How are they supposed to know how many points it's supposed to cost? Like, they could like randomly increase the cost of it. Like, you just want the ones that are open, or you just be like that one list used it well, double its price point. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
What are your thoughts, Chris?
I hate to say I don't know again, but I really don't know.
I don't know. Going to a third and final version of things I'm concerned about our game not being balanced around the same game. I know there are some big tournaments that have talked about banning the two uh, campaign books with the caveat of what's their name, Disciples of Bellicor, because they decided that Chaos Space Marines and Demons needed some kind of help. So for some reason, it would be such a weird thing, but like they are talking about that.
Yeah, allowing disciples and getting rid of everything else. I mean, I am glad that they're like, oh, if we're gonna do this, we'll keep disciples around, because disciples. I've been playing disciples. I do like a almost weekly testing with my team now. And turns out no one wants to test against Tau because it's fair enough. Disciples are very interesting. Like they do lots of really cool things. They're a lot of fun. I don't think they're like tier 1, but they're cool, and they'll certainly crush you if you're not like ready for it. But yeah, nothing reasonable has come out of one of those books. Like, if the things that people are using are just not okay. There's like a couple of really bad armies, and then there's just like busted nonsense. Like Cult of Strife is not okay. The Vanguard Maniple is like really questionable.
Isn't that a slippery slope then? Though, like once you start banning like supplements and books, and oh, now we're banning Forge World because reasons.
Yeah, okay, but like when the next book comes out that has special rules for the speed wall, I don't really want to play against orcs anymore, like ever. Like, because I can guarantee you that's gonna be the Orc Army Renown. The Orc Army Renown is gonna be like, you have to play all fast attack options, and it's just gonna be miserable.
But then there's going to be Tyranids and Tyranids needed because they're not in a great spot right now. So
yep.
I 100% agree it's a slippery slope. It puts me going back to the very beginning when we were talking about like, are we happy? Yes, the meta's in a better place. I'm just concerned GW is doing not a good enough job balancing the game to a point that we're starting to, people are talking about diverging the metas, and that's a big issue. That we are losing a lot. We're losing something that we had in 8th edition for the most part.
9th edition is way less balanced than 8th. It's really coming out now, which stinks because it's better. Like the core rules are better. The codex balance is terrible.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
The creep hit. It's not a creep. It's just.
It's a straight line up. That's not true. Like orcs, I don't think are better than an AdMech, but like they're clearly better than any like all the earlier codexes. They're definitely better than all the 8th.
There's steps. There's like, here's the first 4, and then here's the next 4, and then probably after that here's the next 4, and it's going to be just like, why are we doing this?
And then it's going to be 10th edition.
Yeah, like I am concerned for Magnus's stat line. Like there's a real like there's a real chance that he's just like not good like Mortarion, in which case, fine. There's like a real chance that he's just not okay because GW has struggled to design powerful psychers and have previously missed the mark by making them not powerful enough. Like they're just like powerful psychers outside of Armon have just been like not actually good psychers. They've been silly in other ways, like by being indestructible or something. I am concerned that the next edition of the Thousand Suns Codex, we're just going to see Magnus like turned up to 11 and just be not good for the game. Alternatively, he might just be still getting hosed off the table by Vanguard, and then whatever, he's bad. Shall we call it there?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. All right. We had some pretty good discussion here, so thank you everybody for listening to this week's show. If you enjoyed it, I'd like to thank our contributors for this episode, Kevin Lieb and Benjamin Rubenstein. This has been the 3D6 Charge podcast. Bye for now, and roll any ones.